think it's fair to say that foreign policy has taken a back seat in this Democratic presidential race so far, which is so weird on so many levels, because presidents actually have way more power and freedom when it comes to foreign policy than they do on domestic policy. Most presidencies are defined as much by foreign policy as they are by domestic policy, if not more so. Think of Nixon and the war crimes in Southeast Asia, Reagan and the Berlin Wall, George Bush Sr. and the Gulf War, George Bush Jr. and the war on terror, Obama even, and his Libya war, his drone war, his Iran deal. And yet, while there's been this shift to the left on domestic policy from almost all of the major presidential candidates, there hasn't been an equivalent left-wing shift on foreign policy. In fact, on the issue of Russia, Democrats, including Bernie Sanders, have attacked Trump from the right. And speaking of Trump, this president has been a disaster on the international stage. So why aren't Democrats making more of that? Last year, the New York Times got hold of a White House document sent to Congress, which made it very clear that the United States government right now is fighting wars in 7 countries. 7 countries. Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Somalia, Libya, and Niger. Candidate Trump, remember, claimed to be the Republican isolationist candidate, the anti-war candidate.
For years, we have been caught up in endless wars and conflicts under the leadership of failed politicians and a totally failed foreign policy.
And yet President Trump has escalated or expanded US involvement in every single one of those 7 conflicts. So much for Donald the Dove. Then there's Yemen, where the Saudi-led coalition continues to bomb and besiege the poorest country in the Middle East with US diplomatic and military support. Why aren't Democrats putting out ads saying this president is pro-genocide? He's pro-killing kids, because he blatantly is. When he signed that veto in April, when he blocked the bill that was pushed by some Republicans, but mainly by Democrats, to end the Yemen war, that conflict became lock, stock, and barrel Trump's war, not just Obama's war. But maybe that's part of the equation. Maybe Democrats don't want to draw attention to how much Obama got wrong when it comes to foreign policy. His support for the Saudi-led war in Yemen when it kicked off in 2015, the completely botched US covert intervention in Syria, and the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people in that country on Obama's watch, the war in Libya, which has left that country looking like a Mad Max hellscape, the drone wars in Pakistan and Yemen with their civilian death tolls, the failure to make progress on the Israel-Palestine conflict, the failed pivot to Asia, the failed reset with Russia. Maybe Democrats also can't agree on what a progressive new foreign policy should look like. Because let's face it, a lot of conservative Democrats, and even some liberal ones, are quite hawkish and like big wars. Maybe they're also just as influenced as the Republicans are by the pro-Israel and pro-Saudi lobbies, by the military-industrial complex, by the foreign policy think tank blob in Washington, D.C. Or maybe they just assume, rightly or wrongly, that ordinary Americans don't give a damn about foreign affairs, about faraway conflicts in faraway lands.